Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of textual study of the Quran. As you all know, that this textual study is based on Al-Bayan, which is an annotated translation of the Quran by Ustaz Javed Ahmed Ghamidi. So the text that you see, which appears before your screens, which is the translation of the verses, is also a translation in itself of the translation done by Ustaz Javed Ghamidi. In our previous sessions, we were discussing some of the issues in verses 204 to 223. We had finished discussing those verses. Today, inshallah, we'll do the idiomatic translation only and we'll not move ahead because I'd like to give some time to not only to questions which are on topic, but also some of the off-topic questions which I regularly receive. So I would like to allocate some time for those questions as well at the end. So let us start off with the literal and idiomatic translation, and I do hope that this translation is proving of worth to you. Remember, this will only be beneficial to you if you note down the meanings of the letters and the words that we discuss here, and also because these words and letters are often repeated in the Quran. If you go through these translations, that the ones that you have noted down, either on your computers, on your phones, or on your notebooks, if you keep them in mind and randomly just access them whenever you are free, you will find them to be a lot of benefit to you, because these words will then get stuck in your mind, and you'll be able to connect the words whenever they are found in our future translations. So let us now begin with verse 204. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يُعْجِبُكَ قَوْلُهُ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Wa, and, min, among, annas, the people, man, who, yu'jibuka, you like them, or in fact, since the object of yu'jibuka is qawlu, the exact translation would be your statement, or whose statement you like. So qawl is basically statement or conversation. Qawluhu would refer to these people. So fi is in, al-hayat is life, ad-dunya is this world. So idiomatically the translation would be, and among these people are those whose conversation you like, or whose conversation pleases you. So remember, this ka, which is appended at the end of the verse, or at the end of the word yu'jibuka, is a pronoun of a singular pronoun referring to whoever is in front. So وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يُعْجِبُكَ قَوْلُهُ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. And there are among people those whose statements or whose conversation أَعْجَبَكَ or يُعْجِبُكَ pleases you, فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا, in this world, in the life of this world. Fi, in, al-haya, life, ad-dunya, world, in the life of this world. Wa, and, yushhidu means to bear witness or to make bear witness, and yushhidullaha would mean who make Allah their witness, who make God their witness. Ala, on, ma, that is fi, in, qalbihi, their hearts. So these are the people who make God a witness to what is in their hearts. Yushhidullah ala ma fi qalbihi, that they are the ones who make God a witness of what is in their hearts, referring to the fact that they swear on oath solemnly that whatever we are saying is the truth. And of course they would like to stress this by saying wa yushhidullah ala ma fi qalbihi. Wa, and, huwa is they, aladdu, the most fierce, khisam, enemies. So the thing is that these are those people whose conversation will please you in the life of this world, and they go as far as to make God a witness to what is in their hearts. Qalb is hearts. The fact is, aladul khisam, they are the fiercest of your enemies. Khisam is enemies. Wa, and, iza, when, tawalla, turn away, sa'a, they strive, fi, in, al-ard, the land, le, to, yufsida, create disorder, fi, in, ha, it. So, وَإِذَا تَوَلَّى سَعَى فِي الْأَرْضِ لِيُفْسِدَ فِيهَا would mean that when they turn away from you, I mean, which means that when they leave your presence, سَعَى فِي الْأَرْضِ, they strive in the land. Sa'a, strive. Fi, in. Al-ard, the land. لِيُفْسِدَ فِيهَا, to create disorder in it. Fasad, of course, is something we know. So yufsida means to create, fiha, in it, wa, and yuhlika, and to destroy. Yuhlika, destroy. Al-hars refers to crops. Wa, and an-nasl refers to generations. So idiomatically, the translation would be, and when they leave your presence, or when they leave you, they strive in the land to create disorder in it. And what do? Wayulikal hars, they destroy crops, and an-nasl, and generations. So, and then it says, Wallahu la yuhibbul fasad, wa, and. Allahu, God. La, not. Yuhibbu, likes. Al-fasad, disorder. And God does not like disorder. So, what is implied here is that these are the people who make God as their witness. They think, and they make them realize that we are your well-wishers. And the fact is that they are the fiercest of enemies. And what do? When they say these words in the presence of the Prophet. But when they leave his presence, وَإِذَا تَوَلَّى, when they leave his presence, سَعَى فِي الْأَرْضِ, they strive in the land, لِيُفْسِدَ فِيهَا, to create disorder in it. So they have two faces. They come with one face, and when they are not in the presence of the Prophet, they have another story to tell. So these are basically hypocrites. And what do? When they create disorder in the land, they destroy crops, and they destroy generations, which of course refers to their tendency to create altercations, and the result would be that they would end up in fierce battles and wars between tribes. And Wallahu la yuhibbul fasad, whereas God does not like people who create disorder. And in fact, the words here are that God does not like fasad. God does not like disorder. Wa, and. Iza, when. Qila lahu, said to them, Ittaqillah, fear God. Ittaqi, fear. Allah, God. Akhazathul izza bil ithm. So they are afflicted with arrogance. Akhazathul izza. Akhazat means al-izza here refers to arrogance, and akhazathu would mean their arrogance takes the better of them. They become arrogant. And how does this happen? Bil ism. This happens with an inclination towards sin. So bil ism means while being inclined towards sin. So their arrogance takes the better of them whilst being inclined towards sin. Fahasbuhu. Fahasbuhu means fa is therefore, hasbu is enough, who for them. So enough is for them. What is enough for them? Jahannam, hellfire. Wa, and. La is a particle of, it's generally used to stress something. So actually the word is bi'sa. So when you have the la appended to bi'sa, it adds stress to bi'sa. So bi'sa means evil. So wala bi'sa would mean very evil. Wala bi'sa, very evil. Al-mihad. Al-mihad is the resting place or the abode. So the idiomatic translation would be, and when it is said to them, fear God. So what are the words which are said to them? Fear God. What happens is that their arrogance takes the better of them with an inclination towards sin. Fahasbuhu, and therefore sufficient for them is hell. Fahasbuhu Jahannam, sufficient for them is hell. Wa, and labisa, very evil. Al-mihad, abode, and very evil is the abode of hell for them, which actually means that if they are trying to create disorder in God's earth, if they are trying to ravish crops, and if they are trying to destroy human beings, then they are your stern enemies, aladul khisam, as the Quran says. And so therefore, when it is said to them that you have to fear God, so instead of taking heed from these words, instead of saying yes, we do fear God, they don't actually fear God. What happens is that their arrogance gets the better of them. And with their inclination towards evil, their arrogance gets the better of them, and therefore the warning which is sounded to them is فَحَسْبُهُ جَهَنَّمْ. Therefore, sufficient for them is hellfire, وَلَبِئْسَ الْمِهَادُ, and it is a very evil abode. And we can see how stern these words are, how harshly they rebuke them, and they tell them that they still have time, they still can mend their ways if they want to, but once they pass through this world, then there is not going to be any respite for them. They will have to face the fire of hell. Wa and minannas, from among people. So notice the similarity between this verse and the previous one, or the one which is previous to the previous one. So that also starts with wa minannas. So verse 204 says wa minannas. And now once again, verse 207 says wa minannas. So again, we now find another category of people. And this is a very common style and feature of the Quran. It refers to a certain category of people, and then in opposition to it, in direct contrast to them, the people who are, of course, righteous in their ways, who are God-fearing, now they are mentioned. So you'll find exactly the same word, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ وَمِنَ النَّاسِ. So there are people who do this, and then on the contrary, there are some other people. What do? That's what we're going to study now. So it says, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَشْرِي, wa and min, among, annas, people, man, who, yashri, who give away, who sell, nafsahu, their souls or their lives. In fact, here it actually refers to human life, which means that they put their lives in danger. And what do they do for? Ibtigha'a mardatillah. Ibtigha, to find. Ibtigha means to find. Mardat, the pleasure or the will, Allah, of God. So amongst people, there are those who give away their lives. And why is that they give away their lives? In order to find God's favor, in order to find God's pleasure. Wallahu ra'ufum bil ibad. Wa and Allahu, God, ra'ufun, compassionate, bil ibad, towards these servants. Ibad is the plural of abd, and abd, of course, is the same as when we speak of the word Abdullah. So Abdullah is a God's slave or God's servant, referring to the fact so that someone who is devoted to God. So Wallahu ra'ufum bil ibad would mean that for such people who put their lives in danger in order to obtain God's will and pleasure, Allah is ra'uf, and Allah is ra'uf for such people, which means that He is very compassionate. He is someone who really cares about such people. And then, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. So this is a very famous line of the Quran. It is repeated several times in the Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu would mean, oh, you who believe. Ya ayyuhu would mean, oh, allazina who, amanu, believed. So, oh, you who have believed. What do you do? Udkhulu fis silmi kaffa. Udkhulu, enter. In. As-silm, faith. Or better than that, it would be God's submission, because this is the same word from which the word Islam emanates from. So silm and salam and Islam, they refer to submission to God. Kaffa, as a community. So, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu udkhulu fis silmi kaffa. Oh, you who believed, enter Islam as a community. So one thing that you might note here, that as long as the hypocrites, which we can clearly see are under discussion in these verses, as long as they are not exposed, as long as God has not revealed who they are still referred to by people who have believed. So amanu is actually referring to these hypocrites, these people who are weak of faith. So since God has yet to expose them, and they are found amongst the ranks of the Muslims and the believers, so they are still addressed as believers. And actually, they are told that they should not show two attitudes, that some of them should falter and others should obey or come into God's submission. No, as a community, they should behave as a single community. So just as their opposites or their opposition or their enemies, they are behaving as a single community. So Muslims are being told as a whole that all of you, whether you are weak of faith, whether you are hypocrites, or whether you are strong of faith, all of you should behave as one community. And that is You should all enter into God's submission. Udkhulu fis silm. Enter into God's submission. Kaffa, all of you, as a group. Wa, and. La, not. Tattabi'u, follow. Khutuwat, khutuwat is footsteps, and its singular is khutwa. So khutuwat is the plural of khutwa, and khutuwat would mean footsteps. Ash-shaytan, Satan or the devil. And do not follow the footsteps of Satan. Wa, la, not. Tattabi'u, follow. Khutuwat, footsteps. Shaytan, Satan. So do not follow, and do not follow the footsteps of Satan. Innahu, indeed he, lakum, for you. Kum is you in the plural, la is for. Innahu lakum, he is for you. Aduvun, aduvun, enemy. Mubin, clear. Someone that you cannot mistake to be your enemy. So he is your clear-cut enemy. Innahu lakum aduvun mubin, he is for you a clear-cut enemy. There is no doubt about his animosity. Fa, therefore, in, if, zalaltum, you stumble. Zalaltum, you stumble or you lapse. Mim ba'd, after. Ma, that. Ja'atkum, has come to you. Al-bayyinat, clear signs. And bayyinat again is a plural. Its singular would be bayyina. So bayyina and bayyinat. Khutwa and khutuwat. You can see how they resemble. Bayyina or bayyinat would mean signs. So if you stumble after signs have come to you, al-bayyinat, the signs have come to you. Of course, referring here specifically to warnings, because these signs were of the nature of warnings. So the translation you can see is actually of the implication of the word of al-bayyinat. These signs literally refer to the warnings that had come to them. So فَإِن زَلَلْتُم مِّن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْكُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتِ, if you stumble even after bayyinat have come to you, ja'atkum, have come to you, even after these clear signs have come to you, fa'lamu. So therefore you should know, anna, that, Allah, God, azizun, powerful, hakim, wise. So once you stumble, so even if you stumble after these clear signs have come to you, or these clear warnings have come to you in the form of the Qur'an, fa'lamu anna Allah azizun hakim, you should know that God is mighty and powerful, and he is also wise, referring to the fact that if you persist in your disobedience and this behavior and this misconduct, then God is powerful. He is going to grab you, he is going to take account of you, and he is going to punish you. Hakim, and he is also wise. So therefore he's still giving you some respite. So don't be misled by his respite. If he's giving you time, he's giving you time to mend your ways. He's not giving you time because you are treading the right path, as people would generally think. The time that you have is basically the time that you must use in rethinking and revisiting your attitude. So this paragraph, and clearly you can see the paragraphs before that, have been discussing the hypocrites. And remember, this is a Medinan surah. Surah Baqarah is a Medinan surah. And in Medina, these hypocrites were found in copious numbers, and they were mostly from the people of the book who had come into the folds of Islam. Some of them had their own designs, and others were very weak in faith, and they had hypocrisy, although written on their faces. But they were always waiting that there might be some compromise between evil and good, or they would wait for the turn of fortunes. They would think that if the forces of religion or Islam triumph, they will side by them, and if they don't triumph, then they'll side by the other people. So they were like in a situation in which they were just waiting to see who is going to be the ultimate victor. So it is to such people that the Quran has said that if once these warnings have come to you, once these signs have come to you, even after this you commit to the same attitude, then you should know that Allah Azizun Hakim, that he is powerful, he's going to take account of you, and at the same time he's still giving you some time so that you can think over your evil ways. Hal, if, yanzuruna, await, illa, except, or when hal is followed by illa, then we know that this is a very special style of the Quran, in which it means the hal means not, just as it's partial of negation would mean. They are not waiting except. So illa is an exception which says except. So hal, not. Yanzuruna, they accept. Yanzuruna would mean they are waiting. They are not waiting. What are they not waiting? They are not waiting except what is now mentioned after that. And that is that ya'tiyahum, comes to them, Allah, God, fi, in, zulal. Zulal is the plural of zilal, which means shadow. Min, from. Ghamam, ghamam refers to clouds. Wa, and malaika. Of course, malaika is the plural of malak, which means angels. Wa, and Qudhiya, decides or decided, al-amr, the matter. So, idiomatically, the translation would be, do, they are not awaiting but. So, you see, I'm just going to refer once again to the fact that the word hal, when it is used in this construction, that it is followed by an illa, it has the exact meaning as ma yanzuruna illa. They are not waiting except for this. So, hal yanzuruna illa would mean, they are, yanzuruna is to wait. So, they are not waiting except for this would mean they are only waiting for this. This is a very special style which we adopt in our own language as well. And you'll find this to be very common in Arabic. So, hal yanzuruna will mean they are only waiting. They are only waiting. And what are they waiting? An ya'tiyahumullah, that God should come to them. I mean, this is what they are waiting for. They want such clear and blatant signs that God should appear to them in the shadows of the clouds. He should appear to them so that they can believe now, because they are not going to believe because of the signs that are being sent to them. The warnings are being received by deaf ears. They fall on them, but they don't receive them. So now the Quran warns them that are they only waiting that God should appear before them amongst the clouds and his angels? وَقُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ, and the matter should also be decided. وَإِلَى اللَّهِ تُرْجَعُ الْأُمُورِ, wa, and ilallah, towards God. Turja'u, returns. Al-umur, matters. So towards God, all matters return. So basically, they were asking, and this is something which is mentioned elsewhere in the Quran, that they would like us to see some very clear sign, like for example, angels descending, or a scripture coming to them, or God Himself appearing in the shadows of the clouds, and the matter be decided, so that they come to know that yes, they have to believe in one single God. The Quran says that, well, is this what they are waiting for? But if they are waiting for this, they should realize that if the matter is settled in this and God does send them such blatant signs, then they should know that they will have no respite. وَإِلَى اللَّهِ تُرْجَعُ الْأُمُورِ, all matters return to God. Sal, ask. Bani Israel, the Israelites. So remember, the Israelites, they are under question. The people of the book, they belong to the Israelites. So Sal Bani Israel would mean ask the Israelites. What should they be asked? Come, how many? Ataynahum, we gave them. Min, from. Ayatin, signs, or sign. Bayyina, apparent, which are very blatant. So ask these Bani Israel how many signs we have given them. So remember, this word ayah is undefined. It's not al-ayah, it's ayah, and which refers to the fact that it's like a magnification of the facts. It's saying that how many signs that we have sent them, and many a sign we have sent them. So ask these Bani Israel how many signs we have sent them. We know from other parts of the Quran and of course from the Bible that in the times of Moses, they were sent with these 9 signs. The Quran says tis'a ayat, which means nine signs. 2 of them are mentioned in the Quran. We know that the serpent, the stick of Moses, or his staff, turned into a serpent, and we also know that his hands turned white. So these were the signs that are mentioned in the Quran, but 7 others are referred to in the Bible. So how many signs have we sent them? And they have refused to believe. And of course, they had other signs as well. So the man and the salwa, it was revealed to them. They were given the shadow of the clouds wherever they were going in the desert of Sinai, and all these things were like a miracle that happened to them. But they did not pay heed. And so it is said, وَمَنْ يُبَدِّلْ نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ, wa, and man, who, yubaddil, changes, ni'mat Allah, God's favor. Ni'mah is favor. Ni'matullah, God's favor. Mimbar is after. Ma ja'athu, it has come to them. So, وَمَن يُبَدِّلْ, and those who change, in fact, let me just retranslate this part. It says, وَمَن يُبَدِّلْ نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُ, wa, and man, he, yubaddil, changes, ni'matullah, God's favor, min ba'd, after, ma ja'athu, it has come to them, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ, therefore indeed God is Shadid is stern, iqab, retribution. So basically, they are being told that after there are people who change God's gift after it has been bestowed to them, after it has been given to them, then they should know that God is very stern in retribution. So once again, they are being constantly reminded of God's favors ever since they were brought out of Egypt in the times of Moses. Of course, we know that much earlier, in the times of Joseph, they had left Canaan, Palestine, and they had resided in Egypt in the reign of the pharaohs. And then Moses, of course, he came to them. He was able to liberate them from the slavery of the pharaoh, and he was able to take them out. And they were in the desert of Sinai for 40 years, and then later on they were able to enter once again the land of Canaan. And once again, they were able to find favor with God. We know that much in his own times, Solomon, who lived about approximately 450 years after Moses, he was able to construct for them the first temple, Solomon's temple. And then there is a whole journey that they embarked upon, a journey of breaking God's covenant, a journey in which they were repeatedly warned by prophets that if they do so, then God will also take revenge from them. And we know that the first temple was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king. And then once again, they were set free by Cyrus the Great, the Persian emperor. They were allowed to go back and build the temple a second time. And once again, they after this construction of the second temple, they once again indulged in polytheism and other activities against their covenant with God. And this time they were destroyed once again. The temple was destroyed once again in 70 AD by Titus, who was a Roman emperor. And ever since then, the temple is there in shambles. And this is a history that they are a witness to. So they were repeatedly given this favor in various times. They ended up worshiping the calf. We also know that they were guilty of worshiping the calf, and they were forgiven. Some of them were repented, were forgiven. Others were punished. So, I mean, it was like a checkered history that they went through, and every time that God showed them favor, they disobeyed them, until the last time when they attempted to crucify the last of the Israelite prophets, who was Jesus, and then their fate was permanently sealed, and their responsibility of bearing witness to the truth was confiscated from them, and it was given to the Ishmaelites. So, this is the history that we can see replete in Surah Baqarah. You'll find some of the parts in Surah Al Imran as well, and some of the other surahs, because this is like a warning being sounded to the newly institutioned Muslim Ummah, that remember, these are some of the pitfalls which your predecessors suffered, and you must not repeat them. So this is a history that we have to understand. This is something which is especially an eye-opener for the Muslim Ummah, for the believers, that they must not stumble in the way their predecessors stumbled. So before going any further, if you have any questions regarding what we have translated until now, please raise them.
You can raise your hand or type them in the chat. Ruhi Rasul, please go ahead.
Sir, I haven't understood the meaning of a word which is man yashri nafsahu ibtigha. This word nafsahu ibtigha. What I have already read is that its root words are from baghi. That is, they are taken from the word bagawat. So how would
no, that is not correct. That is not correct. The word ibtigha, when it comes in the ifti'al category, it means to find, to search. Yabtaghuna min fadlillah is a very common expression of the Quran that you will find in many surahs, which says that seeking God's fazl, seeking God's blessings. And here it means ibtigha'a mardatillah, seeking God's pleasure. So ibtigha is not from baghi. when it comes in the iftial category. You need to look up the dictionary once again.
Okay. So, one was this, and the other was another word which I've just missed out. I'll ask it later.
Yeah, you can raise your hand again if once
Okay.
you find that.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Shaban Ansari, please go ahead.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम
Walaikum assalam.
डॉक्टर साहब, ये इसमें जो है उदखुलू फिस्सिल्मी काफा जो है, इसमें हम लोग जब इसका तर्जुमा पढ़ते थे तो हमें ये पढ़ाया जाता था कि इस्लाम में पूरे के पूरे दाखिल हो जाओ, यानी पूरे इस्लाम को फॉलो करो। तो क्या आप कह रहे हैं ना कि ये मुख्तलिफ कई जगह पे ये आयत आई हुई, तो ये अपने कॉन्टेक्स्ट के हिसाब से आई होती है ना, जो उसका कॉन्टेक्स्ट है। तो इसमें जो है वो ये है कि एज अ कम्युनिटी दाखिल हो जाओ, मतलब मुनाफिकीन की तरफ
Right.
ये कहा जाता है, इसमें
Yes,
ये
so-
मतलब नहीं लिया।
Yes, this verse is often wrongly translated, and people think that what it says to us is that you should not completely enter into Islam and not believe part of Islam and part of which is not Islam. So this is not what the verse is telling us, and the reason for this translation is the word kafa. So the kafa is actually emphasizing the whole community. I mean, which is in front, and they are being told that you should behave as one community, just as your enemy is behaving like one community. So they are prepared to fight you single-handedly as a unit. You should also become a single unit. So all of you should adhere. So basically, it is telling every person, including the munafiqun, including people weak of faith, that your submission should be as a community. All of you should adhere strongly to Islam. This is what is being stressed here, and not that what is generally understood, that a few people are, people are being told that you should not have this pick and choose policy about religion, that you accept something and you don't accept the other, and therefore you are being told that you should accept all of it. So basically, the stress is not picking and choosing parts of Islam. The stress is that as a community, all of you should behave as one.
अच्छा, मतलब ये कि मुनाफिकीन को ये कहा जा रहा है कि तुम इस्लाम के अंदर एज अ कम्युनिटी दाखिल हो जाओ, बजाय इसके कि तुम आधे इधर और आधे उधर।
Yes,
ये मतलब
yes,
है इसका।
yes.
ठीक
All of
है,
the Muslims have to behave as a single unit,
ठीक है,
including
अब समझ
prophets.
में। सही, ओके, थैंक यू।
Noshad Shafkat, please go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Ahsan.
Sir, my question is that from a reading of today's verses and also previous verses, it seems that the Israelis were really very leniently treated by God, because they've been forgiven time and time and time again. And the feeling that they have that they are the chosen people is not misplaced. What was the reason for God giving them so much latitude in everything that they did?
So you see, basically, the Almighty had chosen them for a particular purpose, and that was that they were given the land of Palestine, which is called the land of Canaan in the earliest scriptures, and they were given this land so that they could organize themselves in this land as a nation, and then come out of that land and deliver the truth to the rest of the people, or all peoples of the world. So this was the plan of the Almighty. And for this, of course, when you have to create a nation and you have to train that nation, it's not a question of a few years. So they were given hundreds of years. So remember, Moses came after about 500 years from Abraham. So it was only after, in his time, that the Torah was revealed and they were organized as a community. So from Abraham to Moses, the time elapsed, which of 5 centuries, of course, was the time in which they were being trained and instructed and being created as a nation. And remember, it was before Moses that when they had entered the land of Egypt in the times of Joseph or Prophet Yusuf, they had been enslaved when the Pharaoh started to feel that they are a threat to his own kingdom. So this was a time in which they were forced into slavery, and only in the time of Moses were they able to come out. So you have to count their time after Moses. So after Moses to Solomon, again, is about 500 years, and they are given this chance once again. But remember, they ended up in calf worship. And then between Moses and Jesus, we have several prophets being sent. And every time the prophet was sent to them, they would give them that signal that, yes, we will follow and abide by God's promises. And they would do so for some time. And then once again, they would be led away. So time and again, they were given this opportunity, because, I mean, it's like God telling them that you were given this opportunity, not just one single prophet among you, but as a nation you are being given this opportunity. So remember, once they actually, in their final stages, ended up trying to kill the last prophet, who was Jesus, their punishment was even severe than the rest of the nations. And they were told that because for 2000 years they were nations of prophets, so, and now that they have repeatedly broken their covenant with God, now until the day of judgment, they will remain subservient to the followers of Jesus. And they will be kicked out from one place or another. They will gather at one place, try to build their community there, and then once again they'll be just flushed out of that place. And if you look at their history, ever since Jesus' departure, you'll find that one after the other, right up till now, you can even see the last time that they were punished was in the Holocaust by Hitler, as you can see. That God's own plan was that until they accept the Messiah, of course, was Jesus in his own times, and then later Muhammad, their fate will be the same. That because of being chosen for his whole responsibility, and in spite of continuously flouting this responsibility, being given the chance time and again, they ended up losing up their chances. And then the severity of punishment should also be looked upon the fact that because of the fact that they were given this chance every time that they repented. So once they got this final chance, look at the punishment also that has become their destiny now, and which is something which is unparalleled, which means that they will remain subservient to the Christians, and they will remain they will be always kicked out from one place or the other until, of course, they accept the Messiah, who is Jesus, and also Muhammad. So I think this is commensurate with the punishment, is commensurate with the opportunity that they got. And the opportunity, of course, was the reason that God wanted them as a nation to deliver his message to other nations of the world. And this was the scheme which, of course, they never fulfilled. And therefore, also, we should know that with the advent of Muhammad ﷺ in the land of Arabia, the responsibility from them was taken away and transferred to them. And ever since that time, they are in this continuous process of roaming around the world and not finding a place or any respite.
Sir, follow up to this. Why did God make them subservient to the Christians who then have now indulged in sort of polytheism? Why not to the Muslims?
So, because you see, they were the people who had denied their last messenger, and this denial took place. Not just a simple denial. They started to go after his life, and in their own estimation, they had actually killed the last prophet, who was Jesus. Although, of course, they were not successful, but they thought in their own mind that they had done so. So basically, this was what they had done, and the punishment of that was also something which is commensurate to what they did.
But that means that they were made subservient to Jesus, to the Christians,
the followers of Jesus, because they denied Jesus
as a compensation.
Yes. I mean, this is a punishment, you can say, but this was a punishment that forever, until they accept Jesus once again as the Messiah, which they have not. And of course, as a result, they would also need to accept Muhammad as the last prophet, which of course they still don't, and they don't seem to be doing so. So unless they accept both these messengers of God to be messengers of God, they will continue to suffer the same fate.
Asif Ali, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Dr. Sir, you translated harasa as the crops, but in some other parts, harasa is also translated as land. I think in the last week when we were talking about the woman referred to as land. So
Right.
why there is a difference? Is a context difference, or it's like the meaning is not correct in the next ayah, or it is correct as land or
So
crop?
if you look up our previous translation, the translation has not changed. It was translated as cultivated land. Nisa'ukum harsul lakum are the exact word, that your women or your wives are like your cultivated land. So hars actually means a place or a land which has been plowed with crops, and it has been translated, I think, in the same way all through the Quran, unless the context suggests that the hars is referring just to a plain piece of land, which seldom is in the Quran.
Yeah, but when it is referred to the hereafter, for example, the world is basically the harasa of the hereafter. So there it means
That
that
is a
is
cultivated land. So this only shows that what you will sow, so shall you reap. So this land is like a house in which you have plowed, which has been plowed, and you have sown the seeds, and whatever you sow in that plowed land will bear fruit. The nature of that fruit would be according to what you have done with the land. So it always means land which has been plowed. Otherwise, it would have the word simple word would have been al ard. So the word land is generally translated as al ard.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. We'll move on to chat questions before coming back to the second round of questions. So this one asks, what is meant by path of God? Is a Muslim listening and acting on their fitrah as considered
Let
on
me,
the path?
if I could just finish off the remaining verses. I mean, we can talk about some of the other. I mean, if the question is related to what we have studied, it's fine. If there is a general question, I think we should defer it to the end.
Okay, so then related to one of the things that you mentioned, with regards to Nuh alayhi salam, was the entire planet flooded, or was it just the area that he was living in?
Only the area in which his addressees were living in.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Saleem. I have a question too, about ayah 211. So here Allah says, وَمَن يُبَدِّلْ نَعْمَةَ اللَّهِ. Why is it يُبَدِّل instead of like not like وَمَن لَا يَشْكُرُ نَعْمَةَ اللَّهِ?
So this is just a style of the Quran in which what is being, I mean, your attention is being drawn to the fact that the favor God did to you entailed your gratitude and your subservience and submission to God. But instead of taking it to be a God's favor, they ended up making it something which is going to punish them. So they actually switched the implication or switched God's will regarding them. He wanted to give them favor. He wanted to give them comfort. But instead of deriving that comfort by those submissive attitudes, they actually changed this God's given favor, a God-given favor, and ended up actually facing His wrath.
So this is pertaining specifically to the ayat, like the miracles that He showed, right?
It's particularly to some of the favors which were shown to the Israelites, and of course these miracles were part of them. But other than that, God was very. I mean, if you study the Torah, if you study the Old Testament, time and again they showed this blemish, and time and again God showed them favor. He forgave them. He actually once again, I mean, it's like a new prophet coming, and that new prophet giving them new life and new lease of life. It was accepted by them, and then once again, and when it started off, they were led away. So it's like a checkered history that they continuously pass through.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Ruhi Rasul, please go ahead.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Sahab. I have just found the word. It's the last part of 204, line 204. Wahuwa aladul khisam. So what's the meaning of aladdu here?
Aladdu is fierce, the most fierce.
Fierce. So
Khisam is enemy. They are your fiercest of enemies, most deadliest of your enemies.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Shaban Ansari, please go ahead.
आपने इसमें फसाद का मतलब जो बताया डिसऑर्डर, तो मैंने कहीं और फसाद का मीनिंग इसमें करप्शन पढ़ा था, तो क्या करप्शन इससे डिसऑर्डर से मैच करता है या डिसऑर्डर ही आएगा?
Actually, the literal meaning is anarchy. Disorder means to create a situation in which you go against the life, wealth, and honor of people, and create a law and order situation. So the word fasad, if you look at its usages in the Quran, yufsiduna fil ard, you will realize that it actually refers to people when they create a law and order situation in which the life, honor, and wealth of people is not safe, and as a result, it is put to danger, and people lose their wealth, they lose their honor, they lose their property. So this is like a state of anarchy. So basically, it's anarchy which is called disorder here. So corruption is I mean, I would not say it does correct justice or true justice to the word. corruption only means that there is some form of disorder. So if you translate the whole verse so that it can portray the complete meaning, I would either translate the word fasad as anarchy or as disorder.
जी, यहाँ पर ये ज़्यादा सही लग रहा है मुझे डिसऑर्डर वैसे। Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. That was it for all the questions for now.
Okay, so now let's move on to verse 212. So it says, Zuyyina lillazina kafaru. So Zuyyina means decked or made adorned, to adorn something, to embellish something. Lillazina for those, kafaru who have disbelieved. Al hayatud dunya, the life of this world. So grammatically we will translate this as the life of this world has been embellished for the disbelievers. The life of this world has been embellished, has been made attractive. So zinat is something that we know in our own language as well. So zuyyina is from precisely the same root, which means to deck something, to beautify something. So this life of this world has been beautified, has been embellished for those who have disbelieved. Wa and yaskharuna min. Yaskharuna min would mean and they make fun of. Allazina, those amanu who have believed. So the life of this world has been made attractive for those who have disbelieved, and as a result, yaskharuna, they make fun of. Allazina amanu, who have believed. Wa and allazina, those who ittaqaw, fear, fawqahum, above them. Yawm al-qiyamah, on the day of judgment. So wallazina ittaqaw, fawqahum yawm al-qiyamah would mean, and those who fear, what would be their fate? Fawqahum, they will be above them. They will be on a higher status. Fawqahum, fawq is above, whom, them. Yawm al-qiyamah, on the day of judgment. So those who fear, or in other words, of course, referring to the fact that those who fear God, they shall be above them on the day of judgment. So in this world, they are making fun of the believers. Yaskharuna min allazina amanu. But the fact is that on the day of judgment, the situation would be the reverse. That these believers who are being made fun of by them, who are being mocked at by them, they will be fawqahum, they will be above them. They will have a higher status in the day of judgment, or on the day of judgment. Wa and Allahu, God, yarzuqu, gives sustenance. Rizq, of course, means sustenance, and yarzuqu would mean to give. Man, who, yasha'u, he wants, bighair, without hisab, any measure. So God gives sustenance to whomsoever he wants without measure, which in other words would mean that remember that these are the people, these are believers who were scoffed at, who were mocked at, who were made fun of in this world. But on the day of judgment, there will be a reversal of fortunes, and they will now be in a higher rank than those of than what happened in this world, in the previous world. And this is due to God's blessings. So wallahu yarzuqu man yasha, God gives to whomsoever, man yasha, whomsoever he wants to. What does he give? Bighairi hisab, without any limit. So it's like blessing them with limitless reward. Kana nasu ummatan wahida. Kana was, an-nas, people, ummatan wahida, one nation. So this is now the beginning of time, the beginning of mankind. So when Adam was sent, it is said, Kana nasu ummatan wahida, people were one community. Ummatan wahida, they were one community. Fa, therefore, ba'asallahu, God sent an-nabiyyin, prophets, mubashireen, who gave glad tidings, wa, and munzireen, who gave warnings. So initially mankind was one community. Fabarasallahu nabiyyin, and then God sent nabiyyin, he sent prophets. So there is this very apparent suppression here that mankind was one community and then divisions arose amongst them, because this is why prophets were sent. Otherwise, had mankind remained one community, there was no need for prophets to be sent. So you see how the Quran actually suppresses a part of it, and that suppression is simply by the word fa ba'asallah. So therefore he sent nabiyyin. So it has not been stated why he has sent Nabiyeen. What is just stated is, therefore he sent Nabiyeen, which implies that there is something in between which is of course understood and it is suppressed, and that is that mankind was one community, but then they did not remain one community. Differences started to arise amongst them. And in order to resolve these differences, what did God do? فَبَعَثَ Nabiyyin. He sent prophets. فَبَعَثَ Nabiyyin. He sent prophets. And what did these prophets do? Mubashireen. Mubashireen, they gave glad tidings. Wamunzireen, and they delivered warnings. So these prophets started to once again tell them that these differences that which have now sprung up amongst themselves, they are something that have to be resolved. And in order to resolve those differences, God then took one step further, and that is what is now mentioned, and that is وَأَنزَلَ مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فِي مَا اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ. And Anzala, he revealed, ma'ahum, with them, with prophets, al-kitab, his book, bil-haq, with the truth, liyahkuma, so that it can decide, liyahkuma, so that it can decide, baina, between, annas, people, fima, in that, ikhtalafu, they had differed, fihe, in which. So mankind was one community, and then differences arose in them. As a result of that, the Almighty sent prophets to them, who warned them and who delivered them with glad tidings. And not only did he send these prophets, وَأَنزَلَ مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابِ, he sent his book with these prophets also. And what did this book that every prophet of God had with them, either individually or being handed down from the previous prophet that was already there, what did that book do? لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ, so that it could decide these differences which had arisen. So remember, the prophets were sent so that differences could be resolved. And one step ahead which God took was that he sent books with these prophets, so that these books, which are from God, should resolve the differences which arose initially. Fi makhtalafu fi, of course, referring to the fact in what they had differed. And again, this is of course something which is related to religion. So differences of opinion which are being mentioned here are not those general differences of opinion which arise amongst people. These differences relate to religious questions, like for example, God and monotheism, and the fact that they had made Jesus son of God, or we know that Azra was made the son of God by the Jews, and there were a lot of polemical debates between the believers and the non-believers about the nature of God, about his being, about his existence. So all these questions, when they had arisen, God took a step further and he sent down his books who would resolve these matters which had arisen between them regarding religion. And then look what it has said. Wa makhtalafa fihe, wa and ma not. Ikhtalafa, they differed. Fihe, in it. Illa, except. Allazina, those who. Utuhu, were given. Mimbad, after. Ma ja'at humul bayyinat, came to them clear signs. So you have seen that this expression has occurred earlier as well. Ma ja'atumul bayyinat would mean after signs had come to them. Baghyam bainahum, because of malice for one another. Bainahum, between one another. So the whole implication is that he sent down with these prophets his books with the truth, bil haq, with the truth, so that these books could decide between people in what they had differed. And they did not differ, except it was people to whom it was given, only they differed. And when they did differ, mim ba'di ma ja'athumul bayyinat, after bayyinat had come to them, ja'athum, had come to them, bayyinat, clear signs. And what was the reason of this difference? Baghyam bainahum, rebellion and malice amongst one another. And then what happened? Fahadallahu allazina amanu, therefore hada, gave guidance. Allah, God. Allazina, those who. Amanu, believed. Lima, in which. Ikhtalafu, they differed. Fihe, in which. Minal haq, from the truth. Bi'iznihi, with his permission, with his grace. So, fahadallahu allazina amanu, then those who believed, God guided them. Hadallahu, God guided those who believed. And what did he do so? limakhtalafu fihi, he guided them about that in which they had differed, min al-haqqi bi-iznihi, about the truth in which they were differing. So God guided the believers regarding the truth in which they had differed, bi-iznihi, with his permission. So in other words, when these books were sent, of course, these books did not help those who were bent upon disbelieving. It helped only those who wanted this help, and God guided these believers as a result, and they were able to resolve these differences, as the Quran says, لِمَخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الْحَقِّ, that God guided them by His grace about the truth in which they were differing. Or bi-iznihi would mean from His permission or from His grace in the truth that they were differing, God guided them. Wallahu, and God, Yahdi, gives guidance, man yasha, to whomsoever He wants. Man, who, yasha, He wants, ila, towards, sirat, path, mustaqim, straight, and God guides whomsoever He wants towards the straight path. Man, who, yasha, He wants, ila, towards, sirat, path, mustaqim, straight. And God guides people to the straight path, whomsoever He wants. Again, we have discussed this, that whenever it is said that God does this, man yasha, to whomsoever He would like to, it actually refers to a law that people who want to be guided, they are guided. So it should not mean that God guides someone or misguides people out of His own whim or of His own decision. No, this is not the case. It is repeatedly said in the Quran that people who would like guidance, they are guided by God. And when it is said that He does so, so here the stress is that no one can stop Him. He has the power to guide people when they are thirsty for guidance, and no intercession and none of their idols can stop God from implementing His will. So this is basically an expression of God doing absolutely what He wants, but that absolutely what He wants is always governed by His law, and that is He guides those who would like to be guided. Is or hasib, or do you, hasibtum, you think, or do you think, an, that, tadkhulu, you shall enter, al jannah, paradise, wa, and lamma, not as yet, ya'tikum, has come to you, masal, that which have existed earlier or of the same example as allazina, those, khalau, which passed, who lived before, min qablikum, before you. So it is said here that, do you think, hasibtum, do you think, an tadkhulul jannata, that you will enter paradise, walamma, whereas, ya'tikum, lamma means whereas not, ya'tikum, come to you, what came to those before you. So masalul lazina khalaw min qablikum would mean something of the same sort which occurred or which happened to those before you. So basically it is being said that, well, if you feel this punishment, or you feel these adverse circumstances to be going against you, paradise is not an easy affair. If you have to enter paradise, then you have to bear these and tolerate these trying circumstances. And remember, this is something which came to your predecessors also. And you want to go to paradise without even being tested, this is not going to happen. Hasibatum an tadkhulul jannah walamma ya'tikum, and you think that you are going to enter paradise, whereas those adversities which befell your predecessors have not befallen you. Is this what going to happen? No, that's not going to happen like that. You are going to be tested and tried as well, like your predecessors. And then it says, Massathumul ba'sa'u wadh-dharra'u wa zulzilu hatta yaqulu ar-rasul. Massathum, reached them. And what did reach them? Al-ba'sa, affliction, wadh-dharra, and hardships, wa, and zulzilu, they were shaken, hatta, until, yaqula, said, ar-rasul, their messenger, wa, and allazina amanu, those who believed, ma'ahu, with them, with the rasul, mata nasrullah, when will God's help come? Mata, when, nasrullah, God's help. So the idiomatic translation would be that these people were those who were afflicted with hardships and with adversities. وَزُلْزِلُوا, and they were shaken to the core. Hatta, until their messenger, Hatta yaqula Rasul, until their messenger said, and along with him, those who have believed, they also said. And what did they say? Mata Nasrullah, when will the help of God arrive? Mata Nasrullah, when will the help of God arrive? So this actually refers to the consternation and the severe situation which they passed through. Once again, this is like a lesson being told to them that you think that it is easy to enter paradise, whereas people before you, they were shaken and jolted, and such was this suffering and their ordeal that their own messenger said, Mata Nasrullah, when will the help of God arrive? Which means that they were really pushed to the limit. And then the answer was given to them, Allah, inna nasrallahi qareeb. Allah, beware. Inna, indeed. Nasrullah, God's help. Nasrullah, God's help. Qareeb is near. So like this is the answer which they got from God, that now that they have been shaken and jolted and put to intense difficulty, and now that they have asked God's help, remember this is the time that when God always tells you that He does not punish people, or He does not test people beyond their capacity. So therefore, when something is going to go beyond your capacity and you're going to ask for God's help, then that help is bound to arrive. So therefore, the immediate answer is Allah Nasrullah, Inna Nasrullahi Qareeb, that God's help is Qareeb. It is at hand, it is near. Yas'alunaka maza yunfiqun. Yas'alunaka, they ask you, referring to the Prophet. So these people weak in faith ask you. And what do they ask you? Maza yunfiqun. Ma, what? Za, that. Maza is actually mahaza. What is that? Yunfiqun, they should spend. What is this that they could spend? So za is this. Or in other words, idiomatically we can translate it as, they ask you what should they spend. Yunfiqun. Qul. So the Almighty is telling the Prophet, Qul, tell them, ma anfaqtum min khairin. Ma anfaqtum, whatever you have spent. Min, from, khairin, wealth. So remember, the word khair is also used for wealth in the Quran. So whatever wealth you spend, fa lil walidain. Fa, therefore, lil walidain, it is for the parents. Wa, and al aqrabin, for the kinsfolk. Wa, and al yatama, for the orphans. Yatama, as you know, is the plural of yatim. Wal masakin, and the poor. Masakin is the plural of miskin. Wabin sabil, and the traveler. So it is being told to them that they ask you that what should they spend. So tell them, kul ma anfaqtum, that whatever wealth you spend is for your parents and for your kinsfolk and for the orphans and for the poor and for the travelers. So remember, in those times, travelers, they would go from one place to another, and they were in very, very this traveling would be often in trying circumstances. There were no caravans. Generally, at times they were looted. At times they would enter a city, and there would be no places that they could really live, and they were left at the mercy of the inhabitants of those cities. So they would become, they would really be put to the test. So therefore, they are also being mentioned that you should spend on these travelers as well. And then it is said, وَمَا تَفْعَلُوا مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِهِ عَلِيمٌ. Wa, and ma taf'alu, you do, min khairin, from among your wealth. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِهِ عَلِيمٌ. Therefore, inna, indeed, Allah, God, bihi, about it, alim, knowledgeable. So whatever you spend or whatever you do with your wealth, وَمَا تَفْعَلُوا مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِهِ عَلِيمٌ. God is fully aware of it. It shall not go unnoticed. God is fully aware of it. So remember, whatever good you do, whatever spending you do, whether it is in front of people, whether it is hidden, it's not hidden from God's eyes. So He is going to reward you. For Inna Allah bihi alim actually refers to the fact that when He knows what you have done, so your spending is not going to go waste. He shall reward you. For Inna Allah bihi alim, because He has knowledge of what you have spent. Kutiba alaykumul qitalu wa huwa kurhul lakum. Kutiba, it has been written. Alaykum, on you. Al-qital, warfare. Wa, and. Huwa, it. Kurhulla, kurhun is something that you dislike. Lakum, for you. Wa huwa kurhul lakum, that you dislike. So warfare has been written for you. Wa huwa kurhul lakum, whereas you dislike it. You have karahat for it. You wa huwa kurhul lakum. Wa, and. Asa, it may be. An, that. Takrahu, you dislike. Shay'an, something. Wa, and. Huwa, it. Khairun lakum, it is better for you. Wa, and. Asa, it may well be. An, that. Tuhibbu, you like. Shay'an, something. Wa, and. Huwa, it. Sharrul lakum, evil for you. Wa, and. Allah, God. Ya'lamu, knows. Wa, and. Antum, you. La, not. Ta'lamun, no. So this is a very important verse of the Quran, although it occurs in the context of qital or warfare. So once again, these hypocrites are being told that warfare or battle has been ordained for you, because now there is no other chance left, that these people of the Quraysh, they are not going to listen. So therefore, warfare has become inevitable. And the fact is, وَهُوَ كُرْهٌ لَكُمْ, that you dislike it. And now this beautiful principle statement is given, although it is given in this context, but the words are that you may like something, or in fact, the words are you may dislike something and it is better for you. And you may like something and it is not good for you. Wallahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamun. God knows and you do not know. So this is like a very general guidance which is given to people here, that remember, you might not like something, but the fact is that it's going to be better for you. And you might dislike something, but it's going to be good for you. So God is telling them the like and dislike, or the things that they face at times, the choices that they have to make might not be the ones that they like. But remember, at times, good things lead to evil consequences, and evil things lead to good consequences. And what do we need to do? Wallahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamun. God knows and you do not know, which means that you have to trust God in these circumstances. Yas'alunaka. So if you can see how familiar this word has become, yas'alunaka, and there are a number of questions which have been. So yas'alunaka anish shahril haram is again a question which has been posed in the Quran, and you'll find the word yas'alunaka occurring repeatedly in these paragraphs, which means that these people come and ask the Prophet. So yas'alunaka would mean they ask you an, about ash-shahril haram, the sacred months. Qitalin fi, and what is their question? About warfare in them. So remember, the sacred months were approaching, and the believers were going for their visitation of the Kaaba, and there was a chance that some fight would ensue. So therefore, they would ask that if they are attacked, what should we do? So the Quran tells them, Qul qitalun fihi kabir. Qul, tell them, qital, warfare, fihi, in it, kabir, is a grave thing. So they ask you about fighting in the sacred months. Tell them that fighting in these sacred months is kabir, it is something grave. And equally grave is saddun an sabilillah. Saddun, stop. An, from, sabilillah, God's path. So equally grave is stopping people from the path of God. Because remember, the Quraysh would have not allowed them to visit the house of God. So it is said that stopping people from the house of God is even more grave. Wa kufrum bihi, and disbelieving in it. Wal masjidil haram. So which means to wal masjidil haram, and the sacred mosque. So from the path of God, to not believe in him, and to stop people from going to the mosque of God, to the sacred mosque. So these are things which are even grave than warfare. Wa, and ikhraju ahlihi, expelling its inhabitants. Ikhraj, expelling or expulsion. Ahlihi, its inhabitants, referring of course to the people who were living there. So expelling its inhabitants, minhu, from it, akbaru, more grave, in the law, to God. So it is said that warfare in this month is a very grave thing. But to impede others or to stop others from the path of God, saddun an sabilillah wa kufrun bihi, and disbelief in God, and wal masjid al haram. So basically it's stopping people from going to the masjid al haram or the sacred mosque, and turning out its inhabitants from there is even more grave in the sight of God. And then those sublime words occur, wal fitnatu akbaru bil qatl. Wal fitna, wa, and fitna here refers to persecution, and persecution akbaru, graver, min, from, al qatl, warfare. So it's said that persecution or forcing people to give up religion is far more grave than warfare itself. Wa, and la yazalun is actually one word. They will continue. Yuqatilunakum, to fight with you. Hatta, until. Yaruddukum, they are able to turn you. An, from. Dinikum, your religion. So they will continue to fight with you until they are able to turn you away from your religion. Wala yazalun, they will continue. Yuqatilunakum, to fight with you. Hatta, until. Yaruddukum, they can turn you. An dinikum, from your religion. In istata'u, if they are able to. In, if istata'u, they are able to. Wa, and man, he. Yartadid, turns away. Minkum, from among you. An dinihi, from his religion. So he who turns away from his religion, fayamut, and dies in this state, wahuwa kafir, and he is a disbeliever. Fa'ulaika, so they, habitat a'maluhum, their deeds will go waste. A'mal is the plural of amal. Habitat means go waste. Fa'ulaika habitat a'maluhum, their deeds will go waste. Fit dunya, in this world. Wa, and. Al-akhirah, in the hereafter. Wa, and. Ulaika, they. Ashabun nar, they are the companions of the fire. Hum, they. Fiha, in it. Khalidun, forever. They'll remain in it forever. Inna, indeed. Allazina, they who. Amanu, professed faith. Wa, and. Allazina, they who. Hajaru, migrated. Wa, and. Jahadu, fought. Fi, in the way. Sabilillah, in the way of God. Ulaika, they. Yarjuna, expect. Rahmatullah, God's mercy. Wa, and. Allah, God. Ghafoor, forgiving. Rahim, merciful. So idiomatically it would be that if you just connect it to the previous words, it says that a person who turns away from his religion, so a person, he amongst you who turned away from his religion and he died in this state of disbelief, he died while he was a kafir. The Quran says, فَأُولَٰئِكَ حَبِتَتْ أَعْمَالُهُمْ, then their a'mal, their deeds will go waste. Habita, they'll be destroyed. They'll go waste. Fit dunya, in this world, wa, and in the hereafter also. So they will not bear any fruit. Wa ulaika ashabun nar, and these are the people who are the companions of hell. So ashab is the plural of sahib. So sahib, of course, here refers to dweller or a person who dwells in the fire. Hum fiha khalidun, and they will remain in it. Fiha, in the fire. Fiha, in it. Khalidun, forever. And then it is said that indeed those who believed and those who migrated and those who waged war in the way of God, fi sabilillah, in the way of God, what will happen to them? Ulaika yarjuna rahmatullah, they are the ones who should expect God's mercy, who should hope for God's mercy. Wallahu, and God, Ghafoor Rahim, forgiving and merciful. So I'm going to stop here. Inshallah, we'll complete the remaining part of the translation of these remaining verses in our next session. In the remaining time, if you have any questions regarding the text that we have covered today or any off-topic question, we'll take those as well.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Shaban Ansari, please go ahead.
डॉक्टर साहब यहाँ जो है था कि कानन नास उम्मतुन वाहिदतुन, तो उसमें ये अल्लाह ताला उस जमाने की बात कर रहे हैं जब हजरत आदम अलैहिस्सलाम के आने के बाद शुरू का जमाना था, जब अभी अंबिया आने नहीं हुए थे, तो ये उस वक्त के टाइम।
राइट।
और ये जो अम हसिबतुम अन तदखुलुल जन्नता वाली बात है, ये वही वीक इन फेथ है या ये वो हैं हिपोक्रेट्स, उन्हीं का चल रहा है?
Both of them, the hypocrites and the weak in faith, because there is just a very slight difference amongst them. So they
और
are being
साथ
addressed here. In
जी
fact, the word yas'alunaka, if you look at the context of all these verses, these questions are also posed by these hypocrites and that by these people who are weak of faith.
जी और ये जो इर्तिदाद की जो बात हो रही है यहाँ पर कि जो मुर्तद होते हैं अपने दीन से, तो मतलब ये कि वो जानते बूझते दीन को छोड़ते हैं ना,
Of course,
तो
yes.
उनकी सजा तो दुनिया में तो उनकी कोई सजा नहीं बताई अल्लाह ताला
There
ने,
is no
यहाँ तो
punishment. Yeah,
तो
it's
हमारे
stated
यहाँ
here.
क्यों ये रखी है सजा?
So we have, I've tried to clarify this a number of times that the punishment of apostasy or irtidad is a addition in the Islamic Penal Code which has absolutely no basis. It related to the mushrikun of the times of the Prophet himself, and about them it was said that if they change their faith, then their worldly punishment would be that they'll be put to death. Because for the mushrikun, if you would recall, for them they had to either accept faith or die. So if any one of them professed faith and then reverted back to their state of disbelief, it was for them that it was said. So in this particular verse, it is being said that their deeds will bear no fruit in this world or in the hereafter. And actually, when it is said that their deeds will not bear any fruit in this world, it actually refers to the fact that in this world, none of their good deeds will avail them, will be of benefit to them. In fact, they will suffer the punishment of death as well in this world. So basically, the punishment of apostasy is not an eternal punishment. It was a punishment meant for the idolaters of Mecca who had professed faith, because for them it was essential to profess faith because they were fully convinced of the fact that God is one, and out of their own stubbornness, they did not accept Him. So about them it was said that if they accept faith and then go back to their original state of disbelief, then they will be awarded this death punishment. So that apostasy, or the apostasy which is mentioned in the Quran, refers to actually these idolaters and not to anyone else.
क्योंकि रसूल की मौजूदगी में इत्माम हुज्जत हो चुका होता है, इस वजह से
Right.
उनकी सजा कि उनको फिर कत्ल किया जाए, लेकिन आज तो जाहिर है इत्माम हुज्जत वाली भी बात नहीं है आज.
So this is not a punishment at all. I mean, as I said, it is an erroneous addition to our Islamic Penal Code. There is no such, punishment, at least in this world. If people who are free to choose. We know from the Quran the words are "Man sha'a falyu'min, man sha'a falyakfur." People who want, they can profess faith, and people who want, they can profess disbelief. So it's entirely to their own personal choice. Yes, they will be taken into account by God in the hereafter, but there is no punishment for them in this world.
क्योंकि अगर ऐसी सजा होने लगी तो फिर वो जो खुदा की चॉइस है कि फ्रीडम ऑफ चॉइस हो, वो तो फिर खत्म हो जाता है. ओके, थैंक यू
very much. Muhammad Qasim, please go ahead.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर.
वालेकुम अस्सलाम.
सर, एक ऑफ टॉपिक क्वेश्चन है. मैंने एक रबाई को बोलते हुए सुना था कि द आइडल वर्शिपर्स डोंट हैव द राइट टू लिव. तो मेरा सवाल ये है कि जिस तरह से इस्लाम में एक मिसअंडरस्टैंडिंग है कि जहाँ कहीं शिर्क कुफ्र या इर्तिदाद होगा तो उसकी सजा मौत है और ये हमें नाफिज करने का हक है, तो क्या ये यहूदियों के अंदर भी इसी तरह का कुछ मिसअंडरस्टैंडिंग है?
Yes, I think they are from this. I mean, they have the same misunderstanding. At least some of them. They think that idol worship, or people who in any way indulge in polytheism. So remember, these Jews are also not monolithic. They are not homogeneous. I mean, they are not of the same view. All of them. There are some differences as well. But I think the Orthodox among them, the traditional Jews, they have the same concept that yes, disbelief or polytheism is something which is punishable by death.
So, Dr. Saleem, we have a question in the chat that asks, when it comes to the deeds of the one who left Islam, I have heard that this means that they're gone forever, and then I've also heard that is until they return back to Islam. What is the correct answer?
So I just answered this question, that people who have left Islam, I mean, if you're talking about their deeds, unless, of course, on the Day of Judgment, they repent once again, maybe they'll be forgiven if they are sincerely penitent, but if not, then they'll be punished. So it all depends how they behave on the Day of Judgment, because in this world, if they did not get a chance for any such repentance, they might be offered this chance in the hereafter, and then their attitude has to be seen.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Noshaba Wasim, please go ahead.
जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर. सर, अभी जो हमने आयत नंबर पढ़ी है, इसमें जो इसमें जो टेस्ट के बारे में बात की गई है, ये क्या सिर्फ उस वक्त के लोगों के लिए था कि आज भी यही रूल हम सब लोगों पे अप्लाई होता है कि हम सब आजमाए जाएंगे डिफरेंट चीजों से, जो सूरत बकरा की आखिरी आयत भी हम लोगों को अक्सर लोग पढ़ के सुनाते हैं। तो इसके
So
बारे में
for the companions of the prophets of God, this was a rule, and we find that this rule is mentioned in Surah Baqarah earlier on. We have studied that verse also. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ, which states that you shall definitely be put into a test. So the followers and the companions of prophets of God, they're always put through very severe test. This is the established practice of God. But for the rest of us, yes, the trial is still there, but that trial could be of the nature of affluence as well. I mean, it's not just adverse circumstances. It could be the other way around as well, that you are given so much wealth that you could potentially become ignorant of God. So for the rest, the trial could be either of affliction or of being affluent. But for the Sahaba or for the companions, the Quran has said that they shall necessarily be tried. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ, which means from fear, وَالْجُوعِ, which is famine, وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ, which means a reduction of their wealth and their own lives. So that's a principle which is destined for them. But for the rest of mankind, the principle of test is still there. But the nature of that test, as I said, could not be just affliction, but it could also be of the nature of affluence, or giving them a lot of comfort and luxury, which itself is a form of test.
so that there will be test for everybody in this world.
Yes. But the nature of that test for the Sahaba was of affliction. But for the rest of mankind, it can be of affliction, adversity, and it can also be of affluence.
So there is no concept of punishment in this world. So like the
there
people.
Is concept. I mean, at times the Almighty does punish people for this in this world, depending on His wisdom, and at times He does not, and He lets them have their full share of disbelief, so that they are once and for all called to account in the hereafter. So in this world, at times God does punish people, and at times He also rewards them. But then this is something which He picks and chooses according to His own wisdom. However, in the hereafter, every single deed will be brought into account and be treated accordingly.
Sorry, sir. The continuation for this question. So how we know that which we are going through is a test or a punishment then?
We cannot know that. I mean, all that we should know is that at times when we are passing through this adversity, we should probably do some soul searching. It's like reflecting on our lives, whether we are doing something wrong or not. It's like a opportunity for us to reassess our lives. It's just an opportunity. Whether we are being punished or being tried is not something that we can know for sure, because this is something which only God knows, and in the times of His prophets, He could have communicated this to His people. But today, all that we can do is take every adversity, take every trial to be a means to once again review our lifestyle. Maybe we are doing something wrong, and if after review we find ourselves that we are not doing something wrong, perhaps then we can think that this trial is of the form of a pure trial, in which God wants to check whether we are going to still thank Him in these adverse circumstances or not.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Muhammad Qasim, please go ahead.
सर ये क्वेश्चन थोड़ा तालीमी निज़ाम से रिलेटेड है। गामदी साहब ने कहा था कि मतलब बेहतर निज़ाम ये होगा कि हर एक बच्चे को सबसे पहले 12 साल का ब्रॉड बेस्ड तालीम के बाद ही कोई स्पेशलाइज्ड कोर्स करने का मौका मिलना चाहिए। तो यहाँ हिंदुस्तान में एक इदारा है शाहीन, यहाँ पे क्या होता है ना, वो बच्चे जो 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 साल के होते हैं, जो हिफ्ज मुकम्मल कर लिए होते हैं और कभी स्कूल नहीं गए हुए होते हैं, तो उनको वो लोग क्या करते हैं, 2 साल के अंदर बिल्कुल बुनियाद से क्लास 10 तक वो लोग पढ़ाते हैं। उसके बाद फिर आगे 2 साल में 11th 12th कंप्लीट करा के इंजीनियरिंग, मेडिकल या किसी दूसरे कोर्सेस में उनको भेजते हैं। तो ये 12 साल की जो तालीम होती है उसको कंडेंस करके ये किसी हाफिज को 4 साल के अंदर पढ़ाते हैं। तो इस बारे में क्या ख्याल है?
Well, I think it's a good remedy. It could be a possible remedy in the circumstances that you find yourselves in, because of course in the given situation, you just cannot change the system of our religious seminaries, the madrasas. You cannot change them unless, of course, they themselves are willing to change themselves. So until that happens, this could be a solution, or a middle solution, I would say, that could maybe give them some grounding in worldly knowledge and prove beneficial for them. I mean, it's not an ideal, but it's like a compromised situation in which you could still impart to them the essentials of worldly knowledge.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Muhammad Siddiqui, please go ahead.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब, बहुत शुक्रिया। डॉक्टर साहब, मेरा सवाल, सॉरी ये भी थोड़ा सा ऑफ टॉपिक है, इसको मैं कई दफा चुके पढ़ चुका हूँ, ये जो हदीस सॉरी कुरान का मुताला कर रहे हैं, लेकिन क्वेश्चन ये है कि जो फरिश्ते हैं और जो जिन्नात हैं वो एक दूसरी टाइम और स्पेस में हैं, जिस वजह से हम उनको देख नहीं सकते हैं। तो हमें कई इंसिडेंट्स मिलते हैं जिसमें हम अहादीस में भी, जैसे हदीस जिब्रील में हमने पढ़ा है कि हज़रत जिब्राईल अलैहिस्सलाम जो है वो इंसानी शक्ल में तशरीफ लाए, और जो है वो सारी तफसील है कि उन्होंने दीन पढ़ाया, बताया कि ईमान क्या है, दीन क्या है, सारा कुछ। तो मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि उस वक़्त फिर बाद में सहाबा कराम ने भी उनको देखा इंसानी शक्ल में, और फिर क्वेश्चन जब रसूल पाक सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने बताया कि ये जो है वो जिब्राईल अलैहिस्सलाम थे जो आपको दीन की तालीम देने के लिए आए थे। तो यहाँ पर हमारे जो दोस्त जो सूफीज़्म पे यकीन रखते हैं या जो इन चीज़ों पे यकीन रखते हैं, वो इसको बुनियाद बनाते हैं। वो कहते हैं कि इसका मतलब ये है कि वो जो टाइम एंड स्पेस है उसको इंसानों के ऊपर रिवील क्योंकि हो सकता है, ये हमारे पास एग्जाम्पल है, ऑथेंटिक एग्जाम्पल है। तो फिर उनका जो ये जो मुकदमा है कि जी जो सूफी जो हैं, जो कि बहुत ही पायस लोग होते हैं, वो राब्ता कर लेते हैं उन मतलब उस टाइम और स्पेस में जो रहने वाले लोग हैं। इसी तरह से ये दलील जो है वो दज्जाल के बारे में भी दी जाती है।
I think I got your question, Siddiqui Sahab. I think I got your question. But you see, the basic flaw in their reasoning is that it was the Prophet who had declared that they had seen Gabriel in human form. There was no one else, and he was, of course, informed by God Himself. So unless we have, unless we are in touch with God, unless we receive divine revelation, we simply cannot pinpoint whether someone is an angel or maybe some other spirit who has assumed human form. We can never say that. In the case of Gabriel, remember it was the Prophet who had said so. So if it does happen, we just simply cannot pinpoint whether it has happened or not, because this is something which even prophets of God, they don't know. It was God who told the prophet that it was Gabriel that was sent to them for the purpose of their education. So I think that the basic reasoning that we have to understand is that whether they occur or whether they assume human form or not, yes, we would not deny that. But whether a particular person has assumed human form, we can never be able to be in a position to tell that, because for that we need God's knowledge.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Did you want to follow up? We have like another minute.
तो लेकिन देखिए इस वाक़े में भी इनफैक्ट वाक़या तो एग्जिस्ट हुआ ना, मतलब यानी कि जो है,
so we don't deny that. You see, the denial is not that they cannot assume human form. The denial about the fact is that whether someone has assumed human form or not, we can never be in a position to know that, to judge that, because even the prophet did not know unless God told him that it was Gabriel who had come to them in human form to instruct them.
शुक्रिया सर, बहुत शुक्रिया.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. We're all out of time. So for the remaining questions, I would request the participants to look out for the Islam Study Circle. The weekly sessions will be sent out on the WhatsApp group, so you'll know when that's happening, or join us with the next during the next Ask Dr. Saleem sessions. And until next week, inshallah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Take care, everyone.
Wa alaikum assalam.